Resident Evil Requiem's early hours so far strike a convincing balance between survival and tense horror action. Not 5 minutes into my recent demo for Resident Evil Requiem, and I'm playing as Leon S. Kennedy fighting off against a chainsaw-wielding member of the undead. And boy, is it good to be back. Except back actually means not one, but two things this time around, particularly since this 9th main installment in Capcom's legendary series aims to balance two distinct strands of its own horror DNA, those strands relating to both action as well as survival. On the one hand, you have Leon himself, who, 30 years on from when Raccoon City was first set upon by the zombie hordes, more than knows his way around an infectious viral outbreak and a gun. In the case of newcomer FBI analyst Grace Ashcroft, however, that's decidedly less of the case. Heading into my recent 3-hour hands-on preview session, I entered most curious about whether Requiem would be able to straddle this line effectively, not only trying to have its own cake, as it were, but also trying to eat it too when attempting to serve two masters. By the end though, I left my demo not only believing that Capcom had done it, but that this could be far and away the best Resident Evil installment yet. And I say this as a huge fan of Village. Events in my preview began, as they most often do in Resident Evil games, at the shadiest of locations. In Requiem's case, this meant pulling up as Leon to the oddly remote Rhodes Hill Chronic Care Center, where the police officer turned government agent quickly got to work attempting to find a cure for a curious-looking black infection encroaching on his neck. Unfortunately for him, as soon as he's told, "The doctor will see you now," alarms are sent blaring and the entire care center is shoved into lockdown. What follows is yet another traumatic day at the office for a former member of RPD's finest. It's here where I was promptly given control of Leon from his classic third-person perspective, trying to dodge, weave, and shoot my way out of various wards while trying to escape the swings of an all-too-familiar chainsaw. That said, doing so is less easy than in Leon's tentpole adventure, Resident Evil 4, due to one simple reason. It's no longer enough to kill the zombie wielding the chainsaw, since it can immediately be picked up by another one. Such a change in how enemies function might be slight, but I couldn't help feel that this was a cheeky wink and a nudge on Capcom's part, a way for the publisher to directly address the player, almost as if to say, "Think you know what to expect? Think again." This is a sentiment I continually experienced and happened upon across the bulk of my 3-hour preview, as just when I was getting back into the swing of things, literally by confronting the Shamblers head-on as Leon, the action swiftly moves over to Grace's perspective, who also finds herself at the mercy of Rhodes Hill Chronic Care Center's horrors, which I quickly learn are presided over by the evil and mysterious Dr. Victor Gideon. Speaking honestly, I thought that I'd find the switch from Leon to Grace quite jarring, but strangely, the opposite ended up being true, and by slowing down and being suddenly forced to explore from the more claustrophobic first-person view cemented in Resident Evil 7 Biohazard and Village, I was strangely able to catch my breath, if only for a little while. The following section, starring Grace, then made up the bulk of my session, with there being plenty of opportunities to get intimate with this decidedly fresh new House of Horrors. Resident Evil, at least to my knowledge, has never had a medical-style setting be the main focus, unless you include the Carlos section from Resident Evil 3 Remake, that is. Yet there's plenty about Rhodes Hill primed to scare you. For one, it's the way in which its type of infected are different. They're not invaders at all this time around, but in actual fact former workers and patients, all of which are somehow clinging on to their former roles in the land of the living. It's after busting into a manager's office to acquire a solution to a puzzle, for instance, that I'm greeted by a suited, flesh-eating fellow belching out, "You're fired!" in an appropriately unsettling tone. You'd think that imbuing zombies with just that bit more humanity would make them less intimidating to fight, but in reality, the opposite is true. Whether it was the time I was forced to skulk past a cook in his kitchen as he repeatedly slammed his cleaver down on a chopping board, or the moment I had to hide and dash out of the way of a forklift driver while retrieving a key item. The fact that Rhodes Hill's former workers can't shake their former careers somehow only adds to the danger. Outside of Requiem's unique setting and multiple character perspectives, a lot of my time spent in the center felt like business as usual, and classic Resident Evil in the best way possible. Beginning in the center's west wing and then slowly but carefully unlocking and then exploring the east, I ultimately became familiar enough with the setting that I only needed the map to remember which puzzle piece went where, as opposed for general navigation. I can see how the actual formula of Resident Evil not evolving might be disappointing for some. For me, however, there's plenty about the story, setting, and the maniacal Dr. Victor Gideon already keeping me on the hook. In the end, I got the sense from how much I explored Rhodes Hill that this won't be the sole location Requiem features. In fact, I firmly expect it to function similarly to Resident Evil 2's RPD or Village's Castle Dimitrescu, in that it's one of many locales that will test the wits of Grace and Leon. There's still plenty about Resident Evil Requiem's narrative that I'm still failing to get a grasp on. What's the nature of Leon's infection, for example, and why exactly is Gideon taking so much interest in Grace as a potential patient? It's a web of story strands I already can't wait to pull on. Mechanically, the main new function is that of a blood collector device, which I acquired as Grace roughly halfway through my demo, that can be used as a way to create more powerful ammo and herbs, as well as more effective injector device types, including one that can kill large stalker type enemies such as the aforementioned chef or the giant baby-like chunk with just one stab. Rhodes Hill was absolutely full of infected blood littered around, and while rather hokey in the classic Resident Evil sense, it served as a welcome mechanical evolution of the franchise's already excellent crafting and inventory management. My preview eventually ended back with Leon, restricted to the center's upper level during the time where Grace is presumably getting on with her exploring. A boss fight against a chunk saw me avoiding his pursuit while getting in as many shotgun blasts and pistol shots in as I could, before I was eventually free to explore the familiar halls of Rhodes Hill. Both characters can be played in first and third person, but I chose to keep Leon's second section as the latter, especially since fighting through these areas I just become incredibly familiar with as Grace felt incredibly cathartic. It helps that Leon's new firehouse axe means he can unlock cupboards and doors that Grace can't with her lockpicks, so the otherwise familiar setting is giving a slightly different flavour and feel as Leon roundhouse kicks his way through a new route. Despite my deepest fears and initial hesitancies, Resident Evil Requiem is so far on course to do justice to both types of Resident Evil. Leon's segments see him back in on the full-on action saddle in the vein of Resident Evil 4, while Grace's sections instantly put me back in mind of exploring Resident Evil 7's incredibly intimidating Baker household. Whether or not this unique balance can be sustained for an entire game's length remains to be seen, yet for right now, I feel strangely confident saying that it won't come at the cost of genuine scares, the kind of which I didn't want Requiem to leave behind at the cost of bringing back a familiar face in Leon. Right now, Requiem is delivering the best of both horror styles, and I can't wait to see what this return to Raccoon City ultimately amounts to.
Take a 1 second, please.
So there you have it, guys, in terms of our full meaty 3-hour hands-on preview thoughts of Resident Evil Requiem. What are you thinking of the game so far? Be sure to let us know in the comment section below. And then, when you've done that, if you enjoyed it, why not leave this video a like and consider subscribing to the All Out Gaming YouTube channel to stay up to date with even more videos like this. Until next time, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.